What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. Honestly, in Destiny 2, weapon-wise, I don't think there's anything as good feeling as a crisp, accurate hand cannon, and the Austringer, a 140 RPM hand cannon introduced in Season 17, is insane if you correctly set it up. Since this is a kinetic hand cannon, it means that the Austringer can be your primary way of disposing trash in the game. And another piece of good news is the fact that you can unlock the pattern after collecting 5 red borders, which means you can craft exactly the version of the Austringer that you're looking for, whether that be PvP or PvE. The base version of this hand cannon has fairly decent range stability and handling, but we are going to look at ways of accentuating the range and the stability, allowing us a weapons platform that is very comfortable to use and can hit the shots and compete with players that are trying to hit you with pulses and scouts. So starting us off with the PvP side of things, we are going to be slapping a small bore barrel on there. This gives us a small amount of range as well as stability, which I think are the two most important substats for this particular weapons platform. And we're going to add on to that by adding ricochet rounds as our magazine, because that just further on increases our stability as well as our range. Now, in terms of trait 1 and 2, generally speaking with PvP, you want to be focusing on things that aid you while you are moving around and doing combat, or you want to be focusing on things that make you more accurate when you are trying to land your shots. Particularly for me, I focus on the latter. So in my trait 1, I go for snapshot sights. This simply means that you will zoom in faster when you actually switch to the gun and when you aim with it. And then pairing that with something like rangefinder, which allows us to have increased zoom as well as a decrease in aim fall off, meaning that essentially it's as if our gun shoots further. Those two pair exceptionally well and help us to land the shots that we need to drop enemies at not just close but also medium ranges. With the meta right now at the moment kind of like being focused at more further out engagements, a lot of the times you are going to be fighting shotgun bros if they come up close. And if you can land the shots correctly while evading possibly the one-shot kill potential of a shotgun, you can potentially survive those fights. But where this particular pistol or hand cannon actually starts, showing some of its strength would definitely be the fact where if you are fighting more in like a medium range engagement. Now, our origin trait over here is 2XS, and of course we have to pick that one, but the bottom line is 2XS essentially says that as long as your super is full, when you get kills with this weapon, you will get a bonus to strength and discipline for a moderate duration. So this is nice. If you're banking your super, you can get increases to both of those stats. But in general, I mean, it's not as if we can take something else. So this is the stat that we're, or rather the mod that, or the trait that we're stuck with. Now, from a masterwork perspective, and I think I haven't picked another masterwork except for the case of launches once before in any of my build videos, but we absolutely want to be going for range here. We end up with a fair amount of stability on this weapon when we build it this way, and anything that we can additionally add onto the range to match that stat is good, and that's definitely where the masterwork comes in here. If you feel more comfortable stacking even more stability onto the weapon, you can absolutely do that. I've just found more success actually increasing the range here. Last but not least, we add a counterbalance stock on here. To be quite honest, there's not a huge amount of options available to you. You can just as well put something like Icarus grip on here, which gets you a little bit more accuracy out of the sky. But counterbalance stock on here essentially crushes our bounce intensity all the way down to 0, and it's kind of like a go-to for me on PvP weapons. So I would say if you're someone that likes to do, crazy stuff in the air and basically pause in the air and shoot and stuff like that, then absolutely get yourself Icarus grip. Although I think that definitely is better suited in situations where you might be running a pulse or a scout, and in those cases you'll get torn up by those players if you can't drop them fast enough in terms of distance. And this is why I essentially run counterbalance stock. Then moving over to PvE, and actually the preferred place where I like to use this hand cannon, we are going to be setting it up a little bit differently because we want to have really nice fast reloads, and we want to be able to capitalize on additional damage as we drop enemies one after the other. So when it comes to the barrel, we're going to go for our old favorite corkscrew rifling. Corkscrew rifling is one of the better barrels because it's fully balanced in terms of the stats that it adds. It basically gives you a little bit of range, a little bit of stability, as well as a little bit of handling. So that's just fantastically good, and it's good for us in this particular situation. And then we're going to pair that with light mag as a magazine. Now, what light mag does is it increases your reload speed. This isn't the only way that we're going to affect the reload speed of this weapon, but it is a great way for you to affect the reload speed without being incumbent on anything else, meaning having to get kills or precision shots or anything like that. It also slightly increases your range as well, so we don't lose out too much by not taking something like ricochet rounds, and definitely the additional benefit to reload speed is absolutely helpful here. Now, when it comes to trait 1 and 2, again here, like I said, is we want to get a weapon that reloads fast as long as we're in combat, and then we want to get something that potentially deals more damage the longer we're in combat. For me, the perfect pairing of that is in the first case in trait 1 using Outlaw. Now, Outlaw basically says that precision kills give you a decrease in reload time. That means that after you start popping guys in their heads, which you absolutely should be doing with this, because while you can body shot people with this hand cannon, where this thing is going to be disgusting is when a crowd of enemies comes towards you and you just one tap each head once in a row, and once you get about 5 or 6 of them down, you do a quick reload with Outlaw and you're ready to go for the next stack. Now, pairing that with what we have in trait 2, which is Rampage, just feeds into that whole engine. Because the point is, after you kill that first enemy with a headshot, so maybe you aim for one of the weaker enemies first, which you pop with a headshot that stacks your Outlaw and gives you a Rampage stack, then you start moving on to a little bit more chunky enemies, which maybe require like 2 shots to kill or something like that. But nonetheless, these two together means that once you enter combat, you can very fast reload as long as you're accurate and you get those precision kills, and you can dump a shitload of damage downrange by capitalizing on the stacking effect of Rampage. Now, I will give a shout out here to something like, for instance, Frenzy is also a potential candidate here. The thing is, I think Frenzy, the point with Frenzy is it doesn't require any maintenance. So the thing is, just as long as you're in combat for a while, Frenzy will give you its benefit. Whereas Rampage does require that ramp up, does require those kills to feed the engine and keep it going. But preferably for me, I like running Rampage. Overall, Rampage gives you the higher benefit, but Frenzy is much easier to keep up and therefore much easier to maintain as a whole throughout the entire fight. Now, when it gets to the origin trait, again, we don't really have a choice here, but this says that if you are banking your super, in other words, it's stacked up and it's ready to go, then getting final blows with this weapon will actually give you a small amount of strength and discipline, and that actually just feeds your other abilities as well. So if you are holding back on your super because, you know, maybe you're playing through a strike or anything like that, or you're working your way towards a boss or something like that, then in the time towards the boss that you are banking that super, you're going to benefit a lot from your other abilities having faster uptime due to the fact that you're stacking them with this origin trait. Nonetheless, it's not huge. We're talking not massive amounts here, 20 strength and 20 discipline, but again, it's nothing to sneeze at, and this lasts for like 12 seconds after you kill something, so it's a fairly long uptime as well. So then when we move over to the masterwork, same reason I pick range every single time is, generally speaking, the closer you are to enemies, the more damage they can deal to you, because not just do you have to deal with them potentially throwing you with grenades or, you know, hitting you with magic, but now you're also within melee range and you're also able to get slammed and all kinds of things like that. So if you're able to attack the enemy from further away, then that's generally better for your health, and certainly the range masterwork helps for that. Then, since I've mentioned at the beginning that this would be your trash compactor, or your way of getting rid of weak enemies or lower tier enemies, we absolutely want to lean into the strength of that and give ourselves minus pick on here, because this is going to allow us to just deal even more damage, almost 8%, 7.77 to be exact, to these enemies. And that's again just going to help you with those situations where a bunch of thrall come running at you, a bunch of low tier enemies, and you just go pop 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 on each one of the fucking heads while cackling like an absolute fucking maniac. As usual, I'm gonna leave this on the screen here right now, which is essentially showing both of the builds, PvE and PvP, so that you can easily screenshot that and you don't have to come back to the video the entire time. And that's going to be it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. Let me know if you too enjoy the pleasure of the Austringer, and if it's a hand cannon that you also like using, give me some suggestions as to how I should build it otherwise and try it out. I'd love to. This is one of my favorite weapons this season. I'm a big fan. And also let me know any other hand cannons that you might enjoy over this one. I'll definitely like to give them a try. But other than that, it's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you are in the world. And And until next video, fucking cheers.
They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me.